The moment I stepped into my own living room, I felt a chill that didn't belong to the brisk autumn air. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. It was a stark contrast to the laughter and chaos that usually filled it. I had just found out that Mark had been lying to me, and my heart raced as I remembered Mrs. Caldwell's warning about visitors she saw coming to our house every Tuesday night. I had brushed it off as her imagination, but now, with the pieces of my life starting to unravel, I couldn't ignore it any longer. Emily, are you home? Mark called from the kitchen, his voice too cheerful, too normal. I took a deep breath, forcing a smile as I entered the kitchen. Yeah, I'm here. I didn't let him see my turmoil. I had to play it cool. He looked up from the counter, where he was slicing vegetables for dinner, his back to me. What's up? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Just making your favorite. Thought we could have a nice dinner together, he replied, his eyes sparkling with a warmth that felt so fake now. I wanted to scream at him, to throw every single accusation I had in his face. But no, I needed proof. I needed to know for certain what was going on before I confronted him. That weekend, I made my plan. I had heard whispers among my girlfriends about hidden cameras, and although I had never considered such a drastic measure, desperation pushed me toward it. I ordered a tiny camera online, one that could be easily hidden. As I positioned it in the living room, I felt a rush of anticipation mixed with dread. What if it showed nothing? Or worse, what if it confirmed my fears? Tuesday evening arrived, and I sat on the edge of my seat, my heart racing as I replayed the footage. It was only a matter of time. By the end of the night, I had seen enough to shatter my world. There they were, Mark and Lauren, my sister-in-law, huddled together on my couch, laughter spilling between them like a dark secret. It was as if someone had pulled out my heart and tossed it into a fire. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. I wiped away my tears, my resolve solidifying. No more, I whispered to myself. My independence was just within reach. I changed the locks the very next day, convinced I wouldn't let anyone treat me like a fool anymore. I closed our joint bank account while Mark was at work, gathering the remnants of my financial freedom as I prepared for the storm ahead. That's it, Emily. You're done, I muttered as I dropped the last of his belongings on the floor. I could almost hear my mother's voice echoing in my ears, urging me to stand strong and fight. I was no longer the shy girl who let everyone walk all over her. I was taking my life back. The emotional confrontations came soon after, each one feeling like a battle of wills. Mark's carefully crafted facade shattered when I confronted him. You've been meeting her every week, haven't you? I demanded, fury and hurt boiling within me. Emily, you're imagining things. I stood in the living room, surrounded by the echoes of my life with Mark. The hidden camera had revealed a truth I couldn't no longer ignore. I felt a cold knot in my stomach as I recalled the intimate moments between him and Lauren. How could he betray me like this? I glanced over at the small device resting on the shelf, the blinking red light a constant reminder of what I had uncovered. Emily, are you all right? The voice broke through my thoughts. It was Mrs. Caldwell, her face edged with concern as she walked through the door uninvited. I'm fine, I forced a smile. Just thinking. Thinking? About what? She pressed, concern deepening in her eyes. I sighed, knowing I couldn't keep everything bottled up. About Mark and Lauren. They've betrayed me. Mrs. Caldwell's frown deepened. I'm so sorry, dear. You deserve better. I know, I replied, feeling the weight of her words. That's why I need to act. Act? How? She asked, her curiosity piqued. I'm going to confront him. Not just that, I'm changing the locks and closing our joint account. I need to regain my independence, I declared with a newfound determination. That's a smart move, she nodded approvingly. Take control of your life, Emily. You don't have to let them manipulate you. Taking a deep breath, I nodded. I had already changed the locks earlier that day, the clinking of the new key a small yet empowering sound. From that moment on, I was in control. I wouldn't let them keep me in the dark any longer. I also plan to gather evidence, I continued, my voice steady. I'll need proof for when I confront them. I want to ensure they won't come after me with lies. Good idea, Mrs. Coldwell smiled, but her eyes were serious. Just be careful. They might try to twist the narrative. I couldn't help but feel the weight of her warning. Mark had been a master manipulator, always twisting my words and emotions. But now, armed with proof and clarity, I felt different, stronger. That evening, I decided to broach the subject directly with Mark when he returned from work. The atmosphere in the house was thick with unspoken words, each corner echoing the betrayal I felt. When he walked in, I stood resolute, arms crossed over my chest. "Hey, Emily, how was your day?" he asked, feigning casualness that grated on my nerves. "Cut the act, Mark. We need to talk," I replied, my heart racing. He froze, the charm slipping from his face. "About what?" "About you and Lauren," I said, keeping my tone sharp. "I know everything." His eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing his features. "What do you mean?" "I saw the footage," I stated coldly. "You think I wouldn't find out?" Mark opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. "Don't even try to deny it. You betrayed me, and I won't stand for it any longer." His expression shifted to anger. "You can't just throw everything away over a misunderstanding?" I leaned in, giving him my best glare. "No misunderstanding. Just facts, Mark. I've changed the locks, closed our accounts, and I'm ready to take this to court if necessary." He stepped back, as if my words physically shocked him. I stood in front of the door, a sense of calm washing over me as I prepared for the confrontation. The locks had been changed, and I could finally breathe, free from the burden of living in a lie. Mark had no idea what was waiting for him on the other side. I took a deep breath and opened the door, stepping into our living room where his casual demeanor still lingered from the last time I'd seen him, before I knew. "Emily?" he called out, his voice echoing through the house. He was sitting on the couch, his laptop open, completely unaware that his world was about to crumble. "Mark," I said, my voice steady, "we need to talk." He looked up, confusion knitting his brow. "Talk about what? Is this about the other night? I told you I was working late." "Working late?" I mirrored back, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "You mean working on betraying your wife with my sister-in-law?" I took a step closer, pointing to the hidden camera footage that still played in my mind, vivid and heartbreaking. "Olivia, that's not what you think." He leaped to his feet. "You're overreacting." "Am I?" I confronted him, my heart racing but my demeanor calm. "I have proof, Mark. I saw everything. You and Lauren in our home." The disbelief on his face shifted to panic as he stumbled over his words. "It's not what it looks like. We were just—" "Just what?" I interrupted, voice rising. "Sharing secrets? Planning our futures without me?" He opened his mouth to argue, but nothing came out. His lips pressed into a thin line as he realized the depth of my knowledge. "What do you want?" Mark finally asked, his voice low, almost defeated. "I want to reclaim my life," I said firmly. "I want my independence. I'm closing our joint bank account today, and you will no longer have access to my finances." "Emily, please, we can fix this," he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. "Fix what? A broken trust? I refuse to be a puppet in this twisted show any longer." I paused, letting my words sink in. "This isn't just about you and me anymore. It's about me finding my strength again." Mark narrowed his eyes, realizing he had no control over the situation. "You can't just walk away like that. We have a life together. I had a life with you, and you threw it away," I challenged, shifting the conversation to more serious ground. "You and Lauren acted like I wasn't worth your loyalty." The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, I thought he might understand, but the flicker of realization quickly faded, replaced by anger and frustration. "You think you're just going to walk into court and take everything from me?" he yelled. "I'm going to court because I'm ready to fight for my right to be treated with respect," I replied, unfazed by his outburst. "If you choose to fight me, you'll only expose the truth of who you really are, Mark." Before he could lash out again, I turned to leave. "The next time we meet, it will be in a courtroom. Enjoy the silence while you can." As I stepped out, a weight lifted from my shoulders. I could feel the tides turning in my favor. As the day of the court hearing approached, I could feel a whirlwind of emotions inside me. It was as if I was standing at the edge of a cliff, peering down into an unknown abyss. I was terrified, but I couldn't afford to be weak. Not now. Each step I took was deliberate, fueled by the desire for justice. The confrontation with Mark had been liberating, but it was just the beginning. "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" Mrs. Caldwell asked me one afternoon as we sat together in her cozy living room. Her expression was a mixture of concern and support. I had shared my plans with her, and she had become a sounding board during this tumultuous time. "I have to. I've spent too long being manipulated. I need to show him I'm not the woman he thought he could control," I replied, determination lacing my voice. Mrs. Caldwell nodded, her eyes shining with understanding. "Then you go in there and show them who you really are, Emily." As the hearing date dawned, I felt an odd sense of calm wash over me, a stillness amidst the storm. I arrived at the courthouse early, the air tinged with anticipation and anxiety. I could see Mark across the room with Lauren. They looked so comfortable together, whispering sweet nothings that had once been mine. But I pushed the thought aside. I wasn't there for nostalgia. I was there for my future. The courtroom was imposing, the wooden benches and polished floors reinforcing the gravity of the situation. My heart raced as I took my seat. The judge entered, and a hush fell over the room. This was it. The proceedings began, and the tension in the room was palpable. Mark's attorney opened with a list of accusations against me, painting me as unstable and incapable of caring for myself. Each word felt like a knife, sharp and piercing. I gripped the edge of the table, reminding myself of all the evidence I had gathered through that hidden camera. The betrayal was real, and I was prepared to expose it. "Your Honor, I would like to present evidence," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. As I handed over the footage, I could see Mark's face turn a shade of white I had never seen before. Lauren's expression shifted from smugness to horror as the clips revealed their secret meetings and whispered conversations. The truth hung in the air, thick and undeniable. "Your Honor," I continued, feeling more empowered with every word, "I refuse to be a victim anymore. I am reclaiming my narrative." The judge nodded, sitting up a little straighter, and turned to Mark. "Is this true?" Mark's response was a weak stammer, his bravado slipping away like sand through his fingers. "I didn't mean for things to get this far." "Then maybe you should have thought twice before dragging your wife into this," the judge replied, his voice firm. When the judge ruled in my favor, a rush of relief washed over me. I had done it. I had faced my demons and reclaimed my life. As I left the courtroom, the weight I had carried for so long lifted, replaced by a sense of freedom and possibility. Outside, I took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp air. I took a deep breath as I stood outside the courtroom, my heart racing in my chest. This moment would either mark the beginning of my freedom or a bitter reminder of betrayal. With the evidence hidden in a folder under my arm, I felt both exhilarated and terrified. I had worked so hard to gather proof against Mark and Lauren, and now it was time to see it all come to light. "Emily, you ready?" my lawyer, Sarah, asked, adjusting her glasses as she approached me. Her voice was steady, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling inside me. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, forcing a smile. I might have felt small within these walls, but I was determined to stand tall. As we entered the courtroom, the tension was palpable. Mark was already seated, looking smug, while Lauren sat nearby, pretending to be engrossed in her phone. They had acted so innocently, as if they hadn't just shattered my world. I glanced at Sarah, who nodded in encouragement. It was time for my voice to be heard. The proceedings began, and the judge, a stern-looking woman in her 50s, called the court to order. "We are here today to hear the case of Emily versus Mark. Let's begin." Mark's attorney stood first, his words laced with condescension. "Your Honor, my client has always been a devoted husband. The allegations of infidelity are baseless and a product of Emily's paranoia." I clenched my fists, but I knew better than to react. I had the upper hand now, thanks to the hidden camera footage I had gathered. Miss Caldwell, would you like to present your evidence? The judge asked, her gaze focused on me. Taking a deep breath, I stood up, my legs slightly shaking, but my resolve stronger than ever. Thank you, Your Honor. I have video footage that will demonstrate the truth of my claims. I handed the folder to Sarah, who quickly set up the projector. The room fell silent as the footage began to play. It captured the intimate moments between Mark and Lauren, wholly unaware they were being watched. I felt the air shift in the room as gasps echoed from the audience. "Are you serious?" Mark whispered, his face blanched as he leaned over to Lauren, who was now visibly pale. "They will believe you," she hissed back, her voice low but sharp. I stood tall, my heart pounding, feeling the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. As the video ended, the judge looked at Mark with a furrowed brow, clearly unimpressed. "Mr. Caldwell, do you have anything to say for yourself?" Mark hesitated, his confidence crumbling. "It's not what it looks like." "Save it," I interrupted, my voice steady and filled with conviction. "You made a choice, Mark. You betrayed our marriage, and you betrayed me with my sister-in-law." The judge turned to me, her eyes softening. "Emily, I understand this is difficult. Thank you for your bravery." As the hearings continued, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. With each word, I could sense the tide turning in my favor. This was not just about a divorce. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my happiness. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge delivered her verdict. As I stepped out of the courthouse, a wave of relief washed over me. The weight of the world felt lighter on my shoulders. I could hardly believe that the judge had ruled in my favor. I had exposed Mark and Lauren's betrayal, and now I was free to reclaim my life. Mrs. Caldwell stood waiting for me just outside the double doors. There was an undeniable sparkle in her eyes. "You did it, Emily!" she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around me. "I can hardly believe it," I replied, my voice trembling slightly. "It's finally over." "It's not just the end, it's a new beginning," she said, her tone tinged with wisdom. Her words resonated in my heart. I turned to look back at the courthouse, the place that had held so much pain and deceit just moments before. Now, it felt like a monument to my strength. "What's next for you?" Mrs. Caldwell asked, leading me to her car. "I think I need some time to breathe. I want to find my own place, something that feels like mine," I replied, picturing a small, cozy apartment filled with sunlight and freedom. "That's a wonderful idea. You deserve a space that reflects who you are," she said as we drove away from the courthouse. As the car meandered through the familiar streets, my mind was flooded with memories. I recalled the countless Tuesday evenings when Mark had come home late with excuses that always felt flimsy. And now I understood why. The thought of Lauren, who had been like a sister to me, enveloped in the same deceit, made my stomach churn. Back in my small apartment, I took a moment to breathe deeply. I had changed the locks that morning, sealing my newfound independence. It felt empowering, almost like I was locking away the past and everything associated with it. I knew I had to stay vigilant, as Mark wouldn't simply back down, but I was ready. In the following days, I focused on building my life anew. With my newfound freedom, I closed the joint bank account that had tethered me to Mark. I was taking control of my finances, making decisions that were entirely my own. I wanted to ensure that I would never have to rely on someone who had betrayed me so completely. One evening, as I sipped tea at my kitchen table, my phone buzzed. It was Mrs. Caldwell again. "Emily, have you considered speaking to other women about your experience?" I paused, contemplating her suggestion. I hadn't thought about it much, but I think it could help. Sharing your story could empower others. "You've shown incredible strength," she encouraged. Her words sank in. I had kept my struggles private for so long, thinking that I would be burdening others with my pain. But perhaps sharing could indeed help others find their voice. In the following weeks, I reached out to a local women's group. Standing in front of a circle of women, I shared my story, the heartbreak, the betrayal, and ultimately, the victory. I watched as their eyes widened and nodded in understanding. "You're not alone, Emily," one woman said, her voice steady. "Your courage gives us all hope." Each story shared in that room reignited a spark within me, one that I thought had been extinguished. As I left the courtroom, a wave of relief washed over me, each step tinged with a newfound sense of freedom. The judge's ruling had crushed the heavy weight of betrayal that Mark and Lauren had placed on my heart. I could still hear the hushed whispers of disbelief from the gallery, but I chose to embrace the echoes of my victory instead. "Emily?" I turned to see Mrs. Caldwell, my neighbor, approaching with a warm smile. Her face beamed with encouragement. "I heard you won. I can't believe it." "Thank you, Mrs. Caldwell. It feels surreal," I replied, trying to suppress my emotions. The chaos of the past weeks was slowly unraveling, and I was ready to reclaim my life piece by piece. "Good for you," she said, clasping my hands in hers. "You deserve all the happiness. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm just next door." "That means a lot," I said, feeling the warmth of her sincerity. "I might take you up on that." I walked away from the courthouse, feeling lighter than I had in years. The fresh air wrapped around me like a comforting blanket. Every step felt intentional, as if I were finally moving in the right direction. I remembered the stark moments of heartache, the whispered conversations, the looks exchanged between Mark and Lauren, but now those memories were fading like a distant nightmare. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table, the remnants of my old life scattered around me. Bills that had once been shared burdens now felt empowering to handle alone. I had changed the locks on my apartment, and for the first time, the sense of safety thrummed through my veins. The joint bank account was closed, and I had taken control of my finances, a step toward true independence. I pulled out my laptop and opened a document. The cursor blinked defiantly at me, challenging me to tell my story. As I began typing, I thought about other women who might be feeling trapped or betrayed. I wanted to share my experience, to show them that there was light at the end of the tunnel. "Hey, what are you working on?" My friend Sarah peered over my shoulder, curious. Her eyes shone with interest. "I'm thinking of writing about everything that happened. I want to reach out to other women who might be struggling like I was," I said, glancing up at her. She smiled broadly. "That's a brilliant idea. Your story could really help someone." "I hope so. It's just, I want them to know they're not alone," I admitted, my voice softening. Sarah nodded, her expression turning serious. "You've gone through so much, Emily. You're stronger than you realize." I felt a warmth stir in my chest. It was true. The ordeal had reshaped me. Confronting Mark and Lauren had cost me dearly, but had also gifted me the awareness of my own resilience. As the days passed, I poured my heart into my writing. My evenings transformed into cathartic sessions where I explored the complexities of love, betrayal, and recovery. Each word I typed pushed me closer to healing. One afternoon, I received an email from a local women's shelter, welcoming me to share my experience in their support group. With a flutter of excitement mixed with nerves, I made plans to attend.